right, so let's take a sport. I'm going to say basketball here. I'm going to say basketball is a hip dominant with quad as second priority. Alex and I differ on this one. So it depends if you're probably a little more focused on shooting mechanics, up overhead, jumping mechanics from your upper body, or if you're more focused on rebounding and pulling mechanics. I personally tend to favor vertical push for women's basketball, tend to have less upper body muscle mass than males, so longer shots are a little more challenging. In addition, I like the factor of how much of the vertical jump, and the jump itself comes from the arms, so I like to use those arms in my training as my next focus. I think Alex would probably put vertical pull right here and think more about rebounds. Both are totally okay, it just, you have to prioritize and be able to explain why. So after vertical push, my next goal would be vertical pull, then probably horizontal push and horizontal pull. But I'll say again, you could probably flip-flop these. Alex might as well to have more prioritization on pull. So that's my power phase. We're going to keep this simple for today with only 5 phases to make life easy. If that's my power phase, we know in this first phase we just toss it on its head. H pull, HPS, vertical pull, vertical push, quad, hip. And you'll see this in the other video as well, or you've seen this already. That's my stability control. But as we move forward, what happens here? This is where people get really confused. In a 5-phase progression, I think they do have to vary more. But if you're doing an average program where you're going to have at least 1 power phase, oftentimes 2, or maybe multiple max strength phases, this progression may stay exactly the same. Personally, if I only have 5 to go, I'm probably going to switch up priority and give quad priority here or quad priority here. So my phases would stay the same in power. If I had max strength, it would stay the same. If I drop down to functional strength, now I'm actually going to move it around. I'm going to go quad, then I'm going to go hip, and then I'm going to go down from there. In this phase, we've got our legs trained last, and actually our hip trained last because we're prioritizing it there. Now, this doesn't mean we don't do hip training. Doesn't mean we don't want to turn on, especially female basketball players, glutes and hamstrings. It just means it's not going to get quite the love it is later on in our program. Okay. But that said, I'm going to move it up quickly. So very likely in this next phase, I'm going to get my horizontals out of that top position, and I'm probably going to move my vertical push, my vertical pull here, my vertical push here. I'm probably going to look at possibly my hip before my quad, or in this case, my quad before my hip, and then I'm going to finish up with my horizontal pulls and my horizontal pushes. And I might flip-flop those around because horizontal push is only going to get a little bit of love in this program. But that's probably going to be my phase 2. That's probably going to be my hypertrophy program. Okay, so knowing that quad and hip move up, I'm going to drop my verticals down. I've prioritized more my vertical pull here, and I want my vertical push here. So I'm probably going to put my vertical push here. I might sneak my horizontal push up into here for some variety, but I probably won't. Vertical pull, and it's going to look the same as the other. It's going to have horizontal push and horizontal pull. It's that simple to lay out. It doesn't need to be a huge problem or a huge mind-numbing exercise. The key is to know your last phase, to know your first phase, and then just gradually progress them out in each direction. So let's take a different example here. So that was sort of our look at it for women's basketball. Let's mix this up and see if we can analyze another sport. So we're going to bastardize the mechanics in, let's say, a shot putter's throwing motion, all right? So what are we looking at in a throwing motion? I think we'd again argue that hip dominance is probably the most important thing. Having that push off, that triple extension is probably number 1. I might argue here that quad is number 2, but to make this exercise more exciting, let's call horizontal push number 2. Quad is number 3. So now you got to think what's next. It's probably vertical push, not a true vertical, but vertical push is going to get us more push on that. We don't need to worry about pull. And then finally, we're looking at pulls. Honestly, here I'd put horizontal pull before vertical pull, not because I think that horizontal pull is going to be better for the sporting motions, but I'm going to prioritize it because I need some reason to put it in that order, and I think this is going to counteract this a little bit better. Okay, so that's my power phase. Let's flip it on its head for stability control. So down here, I'm going to work on my vertical pulls first, then I'm going to work on my horizontal pulls, then my vertical pushes, then my quad, then my horizontal pushes, and then my hip dominant work. Pretty straightforward. Let's stay with the 5 phases to make this simple. What am I going to do in the phase before this? I'm probably going to give myself an opportunity to actually somewhere prioritize my horizontal push because it is so important. It's probably not going to be here in max strength though. I'm probably going to back this out and make horizontal push my number one. I might allow quad to beat my hip for a little bit here, and then I'm probably going to look at having my vertical push, and I'll probably give my vertical pull a little love because it's not going to get it later. This phase will essentially look the same to me. I'm going to go hip. It's possible I will go quad here, horizontal push here. We could argue why. I think the classical model, if we agree this is correct for a thrower, then it is still correct here. But I might want to make a flip in that we're in a max strength phase, and the amount of loading I'm going to get on my upper body, it's going to be very hard to overtrain my quads or to do more priority for horizontal push than it is for quad, just due to the amount of intensity that upper body puts on the body versus lower body. So let me see if I can say that maybe in a more clear way. I might perform 5 sets of squats, but I'm probably going to be able to get 8 sets of bench press or 10 sets of bench press for the same value of 5 sets of squats. So I think it's likely that I'm going to end up having more horizontal push to quad, unless we're counting those hip exercises as quad. But this is a dialogue you could have and one you should think about. So let's keep it simple, or let's keep it the same as the power phase. H push, straight on down from there. Okay, if that's the case, we've prioritized a ton of hip, we've prioritized a bit of quad, we've given a ton of love to horizontal push, so we know we don't want to have a lot of love here. We've certainly taken them out of priority here. Where do we go in this next phase? I think in this next phase, this is where I might actually allow myself to have some vertical push, and then I might work my pulls next. Maybe my vertical pull, I might even flip-flop and give my horizontal pull here a little more love than my vertical pull. So vertical push, horizontal pull, vertical pull, and now I'm probably going to start to do a little bit more hip, quad, and horizontal push still last. Again, we're very far out from the season. But you could also argue I'm going to go vertical push, horizontal push, vertical pull, then my horizontal push, and then my legs. You could argue I'm going to do my pushes, and then my legs, and then my pulls. Or you could argue my pulls, and then my legs, and then my pushes. There's a lot of room for variety here because this is not crucial to the sport, so we don't want it to be sport specific. And then the only question is, why are you making the decisions you're making? Right? I might want to have a lot more horizontal pulls here and here because I'm going to really prioritize my horizontal pushes down here, both in my training and in my activity. All right. I hope this helps. And again, lay out the power phase, lay out the stability phase, back off the power phase and go from there.